Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
Whitetail Rendezvous and Strike Force Energy have joined together. What have they joined together to do? Well, they joined together to help you kick the can. That's right. Strike Force Energy is the fastest growing new energy drink on Amazon today. It's simple. All you do is rip, drip, and sip. That's it. No sugar, no crash, no calories. It gives you the ability to focus and stay in the stand, stay on the hunt all day long without carrying around a can. When I get a sample pack, simply go to strikeforceenergy.com, put in WR free, and you'll get a 4-count sample pack from Strike Force Energy. Welcome to a real special episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. We're heading over to Italy, and we're going to connect with a gentleman that hunts the Italian Alps, Tommaso Danese. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me here, Bruce. Thank you.
And it's amazing what social media does so we can connect, and that's how we connected. And I asked you if you want to be on the show, and you graciously agreed. And here we are. And we're going to talk about hunting today, folks. And we're going to talk about what it's like to be a third-year large animal veterinary student in Italy and why Tommaso loves to hunt and where his passion came from. So saying all that, let's just start off. What's it like being a college student in Italy?
So I came from the northern part of Italy because I'm originally from Verona, where I spend my free time as my weekends. But now I'm speaking from Parma. That is the city where I study into. And Parma is a really strange and special place about large animals because we are in the middle of the production of Parmesan cheese that I think you all know about, and hams. So we have really tons of cows, dairy milk, especially, and also swine. So being here a student of large animals is just the part of the veterinary studies is much more linked to what we do here because we have a lot of production of the kind of things. And especially speaking about wildlife, it's a good place actually to study about wildlife too, because we have some masters after the degree, but before we do kind of anything about it. But the passion and the understanding of the sanitary level of animals keeps me pushing to understanding animal physiology and stuff. I don't know if I'm clear about that, but large animals are really similar to wildlife. So even if we don't study particular wildlife, we are like getting into this kind of aspect of wild animals.
How early did you start hunting?
I started hunting actually not that early because we are not an hunter family. We started hunting, me and my dad together, when I was 12 years old. And we decided to take up the bow for first. We went actually bow fishing in Florida first time. And we went out gator hunting. And one night we decided to try it. And we were so flashed by it, so keen on it. And when we got back home, we decided to do the NBF and IBEP, so National Bow Hunting Education Foundation. And that was the beginning. And from there, we took our license. And because we live in the beginning and the foot of the Alps, we decided to go hunting only big animals, like we call it fur animals. So it's roe deer, fallow deer, red deer, wild boar, sometimes foxes, because it's predator control, we have to do it. So we just like it. And then also chamois. That was the real beginning. And it was kind of progressive. We didn't search for it, but it was something inside of us. So we had to do nothing except taking up the bow, shooting some arrows, and understanding how our land could let us be a part of it.
So you're hunting on your land? You're not hunting on private land or leased land?
No, it's not mine. It's because Italy is quite complicated about land. So we have public and private. The public land is not the place where we used to hunt, actually. We go on private. That is on the foot of the Alps, as I said before. So I'm not going to explain properly how it happened to go inside the private because it's really complicated. As I think you can understand, Italy is really complicated about bureaucracy, about how we can hunt and stuff. So, but it's just private land, let's say like this.
Do you have to go to special classes or get certified to hunt?
Yeah, tons of it. Like we have, only speaking about rifle hunting, we have the first one that is only for taking the shotgun up and the rifle to shoot only foxes and rabbits if we want to. Then we have to do another course in Veneto. This is in my region because every region has a different like courses and stuff. So in Veneto, I had to do this one that is for control of fallow deer, red deer, wild boar, alone wild boar, because then we have the altogether form like braccata that is typical in Italy. That is another course. And then we have also inside the roe deer. Then there is another course for the chamois. And then if you want to go hunting, you have to keep with you another person. And this other person has to have another course that is called accompagnatore. It's like going with that people, and you have to be an hunter and an accompagnatore. So it's like 4 or 5 courses, something like that. But it's crazy. I mean, they're not teaching you anything except in 2 courses. That is the one for controlling the wildlife population. That is okay. But the other one, well, just actually lots of time. And I'm sorry to say that, but it's really true.
How long does it take to get through those courses?
At least a couple of years. Because the first one, we'll call it the general one, it takes a year long. And then the other one, you can do it in different kind of models. So you can do it shortly, if I'm right, 3 months. But if you're going to do the complete one, so with the chamois and stuff, you're going to do 6 or something like that. So in the end, within the timing of the start of the season and giving the papers and the bureaucracy, you're going to at least wait 2 years to get out and shooting something.
Do you have to draw to get the tag to go shoot a chamois?
So that's quite complicated too. We have tags, but we can pay for that. So when you inscribe to a particular kind of land, you have to get inside with the people of the land and decide, okay, this year we're going to go out this morning and see how many animals do we have. Then we count it and we give it to the province, and they do like a plan for our land. And they say, yeah, so you have like 5 roe deers and 5 fallow deers. And then we split it between all the hunters that have participated to this kind of censuses that they are compulsory to do. And because of that, we don't pay for the exact tag. We pay for the license, but then we don't draw tags. We just being given what we can have. I mean, sometimes I don't have anything. Sometimes I have 2. It does depend from the age and from the regulation of place where you go hunting. So it's complicated.
Well, folks, here we are in North America, and it's not this complicated, but it could be. And one thing I like talking to people in Europe is that we all should feel fortunate that we have a system. Yes, you have to get a hunting safety card. Yes, in some cases, you have to put in for a tag to get drawn, but you still have the opportunity to go hunting millions of acres of public land or private land or your own lease land. But it's just amazing. In the warm-up, Tommaso, and we're talking about the common ground, and he was asking me questions why I do the podcast with the European folks. And I said, because we're all the same. And so let's talk about that for a little bit, about how we're the same because we're hunters and we're connected because of that fact.
Yeah, so I've been meeting lots of guys actually from your states, and they always had this innate love for public land, wildlife, and outdoors. That's something that is not the same here. Because here, it's really different, in my opinion. And I really love how you approach the outdoors, the public lands, having these big outdoors lands and going wherever you want to hunting. But the thing that I could understand that we had together is the love for the wildlife. I really never been finding anyone like hunters that love wildlife as we do. I mean, I study in a veterinary school, so we should love animals, and we do. But most of the time, I speak with my friends of other courses, and they know nothing about wildlife. They know nothing about outdoors. And that's not a problem. I mean, you can be interested or not, so I'm not here to judge you. But what I'm saying that lots of people think we are like not loving animals because we go hunting. But the only thing that I really understood by meeting and talking with other hunters is that no one knows wildlife as the hunters do. It is the same for me. It is the same for you. And we have the common ground because outdoors is inside of us. I don't know if you have seen, there are kind of documentaries going out now on Instagram from this guy. They're called Blood Origins. I think they are from South Africa or something like that. And they're doing a massive opera of informing and letting people understand how wildlife management and hunting are changing the perspective of hunting around the world. And it amazed me how people from all the corners of the world can understand and really appreciate how wildlife can change us and how we can change our wildlife. So it's something really strange for me to say, but it's so that much inside of us that it always feels strange to say it because I don't have the word to express it.
When we talk about the common ground, we just innately understand the passion of the hunt. So let's talk about when you're able to go after chamois and talk about that hunt. How hard is that and what type of terrain? And just talk about the hunt.
Okay, so I'm not a big chamois hunter, that has to be said, even if I really love to go chamois hunters, because I didn't have that much opportunities to go outside chamois hunting. But I really think that is the ultimate kind of hunting. I don't know if it's the species or it is the mountains where you go. Changes completely the kind of hunt. There is this kind of innate respect for the place where you go hunting. And maybe it's the sweat that you put into hiking, going over that cliff and going there harder and camping there and searching for water and spotting the animals. I don't know what it is, but it's completely different than going hunting to the flat for me, for my personal experience. And the chamois, it's a majesty. I mean, when you go up there and you see the chamois on the cliff and you see that it's a male, it's a female, you don't see anything. You just want to go up there, seeing what it is, taking a picture or understanding if it is your tag. Because here, like you, I think we have the tags with the sex, also the classes of the age. And so before really going after an animal, you have to spend hours glassing and understanding everything about that animal. And it grows in you this kind of love for the place where you are and for the animals that you're watching. It's just like this. You go outside and you are full into the place where you go hunting. And actually get into the pragmatic side of things, chamois hunting is really tough because you have to go up there to the Alps, at least 2,000 meters up. So you get to hike that much. And most of the time you stay outside 2 or 3 days. Here in Italy, it's not that common. I know that it sounds strange for you because you have tons of public lands where you can go and stay outside even weeks. But here it's quite complicated to stay out from the rural areas because they are everywhere. And taking a chamois from the peak of mountains and harvesting the animals and cleaning it up and putting it into the backpack and getting down to the car. I don't know if I've ever experienced something like that with any other kind of activities or any kind of animals. I think they're just the mountains. I don't know how to express it. It's just gratitude, I think, respect, happiness for what you've done, what you achieved. Also knowing that you didn't take something from the land. You have to do it because it's wildlife management. And it's really good to do it for the habitat and for the animal. And then you get some organic meat back home. It's just a complex of things that gets you the ultimate experience when chamois hunting.
Become a smarter whitetail deer hunter. Find out when to hunt, where to hunt, how to hunt. How? By joining Deer Hunting Institute. After 4 years, I'm happy to announce the founders membership of Deer Hunting Institute. It's going to be July 9th, 2019 at 9 a.m. It's going to run for a couple of days. During that time, you're going to be able to sign up and become a founding member of Deer Hunting Institute. Deer Hunting Institute will consist of a 13-module course that I've written, and you've seen some of that information on social media. It's also going to be a membership course. Starting in August, I'm going to have a soft launch, and the hard launch to that membership course is going to be in January. Let's talk about the Deer Hunting Institute course. I have 13 modules talking about stand sites, how to find a place to hunt, scouting hunting location, reading sign, how to hunt during the rut, when to hunt, where to hunt. And in the membership, we're going to have expert interviews. We're going to have Q&A sessions. We're going to have how-to sessions. Every single week for a member, you're going to get this information. So all in all, on July 9th, you're going to have the opportunity to become a founding member. Founding member is simple. You pay a flat fee of $299 and you're a member of Deer Hunting Institute forever, period. You get the free course and free access to the membership. Wherever that goes, you'll have that ability. So I just want to say I'm so pleased that after 4 years of talking to hundreds of whitetail hunters, I've condensed it all and I'm launching this course on September 9th, 2019 at 9 a.m. You mentioned that it's hard to spike out more than 3 days. I don't quite understand that. So elaborate more on that.
Yeah, so we don't have that much public land, okay? And we can go out hiking. You can go hike on the Alps and you can stay outside how much time do you want to. But going hunting for more than 3 or 4 days is not that common here in the Alps because everything is quite near. And the places where you normally go hunting are really near to roads, are really near to houses. There is not that big lands as you have here, like driving with the trucks 5 hours, putting it down, hiking hundreds of miles, then going to hunt the Dall sheep or whatever you have to. You have big lands, really big lands that we don't have. It's more like some backcountry hunting that won't take you that much, unlikely. I don't know if I'm clear about that, but I really can understand that it's really the opposite from what you have there.
Have you ever hunted the Dolomites?
Yes.
Okay, so if you look at pictures of the Dolomites, there's these fields or pastures or whatever, and then there's lots of cabins, and then there's the mountains, and they're majestic, absolutely outstanding mountains. Now, is that someplace you'd go for chamois?
Yes, it is. That's right. That's the exact place I was speaking about. When you go chamois hunting, like not near to my home, because I really live on the pre-Alps, so they're not that high Dolomites, but from the steppe, I would say 1 hour by car, you have this kind of just rocky mountains, so Dolomites, and that is the place where you go hunting chamois. That's the exact place I was speaking about before.
So folks, think of the Tetons. I guess the Dolomites are just majestic, and the best mountains that I can compare them to, I have not been there, I've seen photos, are the Tetons because they're just spires that go crazily up into the air. So you've got to be physically fit and you got to have mountaineering experience before you start rucking up in those.
Yeah, that's right. Physically fit is the first things that we have to be. Going up into the mountains is not a joke. I mean, you can go now hiking into the fields up there, shooting something. It won't take you that much. But if you go hunting to the mountains, you have to be able to carry your stuff on your backpack for days and food and water, because maybe you won't find food, we won't find water, and surely you won't find food unless you shoot something, of course. And that would take you a really big effort, actually. But I think is the minimum. As Cameron Names from the US said, your animals need your respect and also your fitness. So if you're not fit, you shouldn't be entitled to go up to the peaks and shooting. Some people do bring that by cars or something, or helicopters. Sometimes we have all kind of activities, actually.
No, because that's pretty much outlawed. It is outlawed to use helicopters for big games. Now we can use them for hogs because hogs are pests. They're vermin. But for big game animals, there was a time that people would hire a helicopter, go up and go sheep hunting. They weren't sheep hunting. They were just shooting sheep.
Yeah, they don't shoot from the helicopter in Italy. No. They get brought to the place, left here, and then go shooting. Yeah. I don't like it either. I mean, it's like in New Zealand or in Yukon where you get to a point that is really far away. No one can get there, and you can because you have to pay for an helicopter. I don't think that's right at all.
Yeah. And there's certain laws that you have to wait in Alaska. You have to wait a specified amount of time. Not hunted the Yukon, so I can't speak to that. But that's well regulated now, so you can't just pop in, get out, shoot your game, load your game, and get out. And that's a good thing. You know, you think about the mountains and everything. Now, where you're hunting, like roe deer and stag and that.
And fallow also.
And fallow deer. Are they all in the same place? Let's talk about where those guys hang out.
Okay. So on the pre-Alps, we have lots of forests and we have this kind of low pasture fields for meat cows, let we say like this. And so we find mainly wild boar everywhere. We have this big problem with wild boar, like you. There are pests here and they're destroying everything. Actually, I live in a place where they do wine, and wild boars are a big damage. They're doing like thousands of damages a year, doing really a disaster. The last year were a disaster. So we have wild boars everywhere. You go on the peak of the mountain, you find wild boars. You go on down, you find wild boars everywhere. Then we have roebucks, a good number of it, and they live into this kind of low pastures, as I said before. So they like having an open field near where they live. So normally we go hunting roebucks, staying into the forest or on a high seat that we built into the forest and watch into the beginning of the pasture. that is the best place where you can find it. And normally it is in the evening, but it does depend from the place. And then you have fallows. And fallows deer, I have to understand where they live properly, because I've seen fallow deer quite everywhere this year. With roe deer in the pastures, but also down into the bush. And I can properly understand where they're moving and where they like to be. I just know some spots in my lands, of course, like every hunters do. But I think they live quite like wild boars everywhere in my place. And then we have mouflon. So this kind of wild sheep. And they live into the rocks. So it's like, it's not high mountains. It's a mix between rocks and bush, I would say like that. And it's really dry, actually, with no water at all. But they love to stay there. So if you have to find a mouflon, you'll be quite sure to find something like that. And also deers. Deers, the king of the forest, they're everywhere also. They prefer to live into the forest in our places and higher forests. The possibility to go into the pastures like the roebucks, but they prefer to stay inside. They don't like to go out into the pastures. Of course, to find a deer and to shot a deer, you have to wait until it gets into the pasture, because going to the forest most of the time is not the best way for us to go, because they are really dry and like stitchy. And so you're going to make a lot of noises. So you won't come nothing good from it. So I know where they live, but most of the time, the truth is that you have to wait for the animals to go out every time, and also every kind of animals, unless you pasturate. So, but that's a different point.
Now, are you archery hunting, crossbow hunting, or just rifle hunting?
I'm doing both bow hunting and rifle hunting. Now, normally I do rifle hunting when I have to close my plan, because here you have some tags to do. And if you don't close it, it's kind of a problem, because every year, as I said before, we have to count it. But if we cannot close the plan, as we said, the guys from the upper level will say to us, so you said something wrong because you didn't close the plan. So maybe you don't have the animals that you told us you have. And because of that, sometimes we are kind of in a hurry because we have to close it. So bow hunting, we do it at the beginning of the season, but then most of the time you go out rifle hunting.
So if I hear you correctly, you go out and do a census, then you go to the powers that be, the bureaucracy or the people in charge, give them your plan, and then they approve it or modify it. And then you've got to go out and fill the plan.
That's right. Most of the time they do our plans, actually, because we just give them the number of the animals of our land, and they decide how to manage it and how many animals to kill every year.
Now, would it be beneficial to understate what you have? The management part would be skewed, though, if you did that.
That's a really difficult field to get into, because I don't really think that most of the time they do a proper plan. Okay, so I know it sounds strange, but here in Italy, you don't have to take anything for granted. I mean, normally you think if you give a numbers of animal to a guy that should do a plan and should know how to do a plan, that should be a good plan, and that's okay. But here it's not like this. I mean, I'm not sure that people that do for us the plans, they do a proper plans. I think what they're doing is an hunting plan and not a wildlife management plan. I don't know if I can explain myself properly, but from what I'm seeing of the going of our population of animals, we are not managing it correctly, in my point of view, and actually in the academic point of view. I think that's too complicated to tell to the people that do the plan. So most of the time, what I prefer to do, but actually my point of view is not listen where I go, because I'm no one, so I just have a point of view. We shouldn't shoot every animal on our land that we are given. I don't know if I'm explaining it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Normally, I prefer to follow the academic rule of wild management. So if they give me on the number of animals that I know we have a certain and too big, in our opinion, number of animals, I would say, okay, we should just 3, 4, 5, what we want to, but not that many animals. Because the next year, if not, we won't have that many animals. And because it's not right. I mean, that's wildlife. We should be able to manage that and not to give too many advantages from that. And so to speak, we prefer sometimes not to shoot. I prefer every time not to shoot too many animals. But of course, I have to speak also with other people. And if we have given some animals, they prefer to shoot it for lots of reasons. Most of the time we do shoot, but I do think that the plans are not done correctly in my place. I think it's a problem of lots of places, actually.
Yeah, it's just interesting. And big game management or wildlife management, upland bird, migratory birds, it is a science, but then again, people get involved and then it changes. And I think the people that are doing the management plans and the biologists do the best job that they can. But sometimes it could be that a specific area has issues, like it doesn't have any, age class recruitment.
That's right.
And all of a sudden you're shooting 1.5, 2.5, 3.5-year-old game, but you don't have any 4.5, 5.5, 6.5-year-old games. So it's not the best way to manage something. You have we call it a balanced herd, especially in the whitetail world, where you want to have a balanced herd of all different age classes. Now, the biggest trophies are typically the oldest, depending on where you hunt. But 4.5 years and up typically are your biggest trophies. But then 1.5, 2.5, 3.5-year-old bucks, if you let them grow, is a good thing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Then you have the does, and how many doe do you have on your land? And then you have to manage that. So,
but no one wants to shoot a doe. That's a problem here in Italy. They all want the trophy.
And that in itself isn't good either, because then you go way out of balance.
That won't go far. I mean, if you have 1 male and 5 females with roebucks population, that is not good. You should have 1 male and 2 females, but no one wants to shoot a female or a child, and so they're not going to shoot it. And that's okay. I mean, if you want to shoot a trophy, that's okay. But someone has to shoot also the females for the population, for the trophy of the next years. Because if we have too many females, it won't be good for the population either, for your trophy next years. So what they don't understand is that what they do today, they will see it tomorrow. And that's the problem of management. Well, people that do management don't understand management, I think.
No, why don't you, when you get your degree, why don't you get into wildlife management?
I don't know. Maybe that should be a good plan. I really like it. It's kind of my passion, but they keep telling me that it's not a good way because there are other kind of professionalities that do it better, like biologists and other stuff for people. So us, like veterinary medicine, we won't be that good on it, but I really like it. So I'm really thinking about it, actually.
Yeah, because we're having a very good conversation. You have a deep understanding of what needs to happen. And there's always external forces. We're not going to get away from those. But you think about that. Okay, so you go out and harvest a roebuck. Now, how do you prepare it?
Okay, so we can do the field dressing here in Italy. It's just what we normally do. So we get there. Normally we can get there quite early with the car or quite near. So like 1 or 2 kilometers at least. But normally we field dress on the exact place where we shoot it. And then I personally like to carry it in the backpack, or if it's really big, like a fallow, I like to bring it on the back, like the Kiwi way. So like cutting the forelegs and put it on the back. And then when we get to the car, we brought it to it's a spot that every reserve has. So it's a place where you hang your animals, you clean it. You take some samples if you want to. We normally do it. It's not something that it's compulsory, but we prefer to do it. So like checking the sanitary level of the population that we have for pesticides and particular kind of pathology. Then I bring the samples to my university because they can watch it. And we put the harvested animal cleaned into the fridge. It does depend from the species. The wild boar stays inside a week at least. For the, I don't know how to say it in English, but it's the frolatura, aging, thank you, of the meat. Normally the roebuck stays inside a couple of days. We butcher it into the place. And we love doing like what we call salami or this kind of hams and stuff, only if we have controlled it from the sanitary point of view, because of course it's raw meat. So if it has parasites, it won't be a problem. But that's kind of all. We don't have procedures unless you're speaking about wild boar control. That is a different kind of hunting because we can hunt wild boars in braccate. So it's like driven hunts. And then we can hunt wild boars by ourselves, like selection. And then we have control. That is another thing. That is the same thing as selection, actually, but they call it control. I don't know why. But you can stay outside more. You can shoot with the night vision. And it's actually the proper way to control a population. It's the only way because wild boars get outside really late here. So it's the only way to shoot a wild boar unless you go driven hunt. And in that case, you have to bring that wild boar to a control center. At that control center, I don't know what they're doing inside because I think they're just butchering it up, but they should control it. And sometimes it's happened. Actually, I've been speaking with some vets that are controlling it, but they're doing like samples. So sometimes they go there and they watch it, but sometimes they don't. So it's like a kind of prevention, but they're not really working. Anyway, we have to do it.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show tonight. Before we go, can I take a moment and say thank you? Listen, as we started the Whitetail Rendezvous podcast journey, we had no idea what to expect. But after 4 years, we received a ton of feedback from our over 400,000 listeners and climbing to 500,000. Speaking of which, we are now closing in on over 600 featured guests. Thank you. And a quick shout out to all those who have left an iTunes review and your feedback. I get those and really appreciate it. And it's awesome to see what you have to say, and we do read every single one of them. And I just want you to know that I am incredibly grateful for your kind words regarding the show. And all of the ratings and reviews help us attract more listeners. And if you're one of those new listeners, welcome. Great to have you. By the way, if you haven't taken the time to rate and review our show and like the Hunting on Private Land strategy on how to get permission to hunt a private property, go to whitetailrendezvous.com as a special gift for just rating and reviewing our show. When you get there, look for the start button to get the details. Listen, I'll share you the top technique from some of the top hunters in the country on how do they get permission to hunt on private land. I'll share with you the exact techniques they use to get permission. As my way of saying thanks for rating and reviewing the show on iTunes. So join us next time. And remember, we're all on this journey together, learning, sharing, and becoming 365 hunters.
Do you get to keep the meat, or when you give them to the control site, you just give the whole animal?
Okay, to the control site is different. Normally, when we hunt without the control, we have to keep the meat. We want to keep the meat, of course, but we can completely. The animals is all ours. So beginning from the food and ending with the trophy, you can take everything home. When you go controlling the animals, it's different. I'm not really into it, so I don't want to speak falsely, but I remember something like you have to pay €3 the kilo for the wild boar. And then you have to pay also the butchering. So it's something that, as we say in Italy, has short legs. So it won't go further. It's something that no one does, even if it could be really good, because control hunting is the only way to manage properly the wild boar population here in Italy, or actually in my place. Because selection and driven hunt, I don't like driven hunts actually, so I've tried it, so I can quite understand it. But I don't like the way how they do it, because they don't manage it, they just shoot. And that's a problem when you have a crazy population of wild boars, because you're going to shoot everything that passes into it, and it's not going to help. Yeah, it's going to decrease the numbers of wild boars, that for sure, but not as you should with a control. So searching for the class, the age, the animals, that should be the point. And the control, that should be the way to do it, but it's too complicated, as always in Italy. So no one does it. That's the main problem.
So of all the animals you get to hunt, what's your favorite?
For me, the chamois, surely, because as I said before, the mountains are just unbelievable. For me, it would be enough just to go into the mountains, actually. I love going out and hiking, of course, but going into the mountains, seeing animals, spotting animals, hunting the animals, sweating when you're getting up, sweating even more when you're getting down with the animals on the back. That's unbelievable for me. I really like it.
No, do you mount them? Do you mount the skull or the horns?
Yeah. I do.
And how's the meat taste?
Of the chamois is not actually the best. It's not the worst even, but I will tell that the first one is the fallow deer, the second is the red deer, and then you have maybe the roe deer. But the chamois is quite the last, actually. I think the only worst kind of meat will be the wild boar when you're hunting in braccata, because they are like really stressed sometimes, and when you butcher it up, they smell like it's quite uneating. But the chamois is like a goat, so it won't smell really good. It does depend from the class of the age, of course, from the period, from the sex, like everything, like if you have hormones or not. So it will change, but I won't say that is the perfect kind of meat. But if you do it correctly, It's beautiful. It's really good to eat. With salami mainly, I would say.
What type of rifle do you use?
I use a 308. It's a Browning, the X-Bolt, because I'm left-handed, so I had really big problems here finding some rifles. And the Browning was the only kind of rifle I could get for the kind of price I wanted to spend. And 308 for me was the kind of, I can do quite everything with that. I can go out fox shooting and pest controlling, and then I can go out and shoot a decent wild boar, maybe change it, of course, sometimes the bullet, but I can do quite everything. Unless I'm going chamois hunting, normally I bring out my dad gun. So it's a 7 Remington. It is much better because, of course, I can shoot further and it's a bigger caliber.
What about optics?
I mount a Swarovski Z4 illuminated 312-50 on my 308. And I think that for me is the best one because, of course, Swarovski doesn't need words to be expressed because they're really good. But they're really, really light. I can see even in the beginning of the morning or on the late hours of the night because they have these big lenses and they're really good for late nights or early in the morning. And on the 7 Remington Magnum, I mount a Leopold actually because it's a 314-56, something like that. I can't remember properly. I'm sure it is 56. That's a really good optic too. I can shoot quite far with that. I mean, not me, because I'm a good shooter, but not the best shooter. My dad is a really good shooter, and he can shoot really far with that.
Wow, this has been so much fun. And just to sit and chit-chat and get a little taste of what it's like to hunt in Italy. It is different. There's no question about it. But you're such an animated and passionate young man. It's
Thank you.
A joy.
The joy was mine because I was really thrilled to come here and speak with you. It was really good. Thank you very much for the occasion.
Well, it's my pleasure. And like I said in the warm-up, if any of your friends want to get on the show, if they're anything like you, they'll be a great guest.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.